that's the start to episode 10 of the podcast series. Today I have with me Michael Perticone, aka Mr. Pert, my band teacher. Known him for, probably about half my life, right? I've known him since, what, 5th grade?
Yep.
So, yeah, it's been a long time.
Maybe even 4th.
Maybe even 4th. But go a long way back. Mr. Pert is really a guy who, inspired me to, keep pursuing the sax and wanting to grow and get better.
Yeah.
So, he's the real deal.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, no, of course.
Appreciate it.
Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, the first thing I want to get into is, how you got into music in the first place.
That's a great question. So how I got into music? Well, growing up in a family of, we'll say, 3 brothers and my sister, we all seemed to play music. My parents got us into playing music. My 2 older brothers played in band like I did.
Okay. Did they play the sax as well? Or?
My older brother played clarinet and sax.
Okay.
That's how I got one of the saxophones.
Gotcha.
And my other brother played the trumpet. And we actually were in band together at some point because
Really?
we were 2 years apart. And my sister played in the orchestra.
Okay.
She didn't last.
Come on, orchestra.
So she didn't last in the orchestra, but we all lasted in the band. We all played.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I had an uncle. My uncle Ron was really into music. We used to listen to records. Back in the day we had records. And then my cousin Greg also got into records. And then my older brother Paul was a big influence. He was always going to the store and buying different things. What happened was I started to play as early as 4th grade the saxophone, and my close friend Ron, or really one of my best friends, this guy Ron, who lives in Florida, who still plays. So we grew up playing, and we were always in competition with each other.
Really? So you pushed each other.
Yeah, that's really the way it was. So we always thought we were, I thought I was better than he was. He thought he was better than I was. You know what I mean? We were like, oh yeah. But we each time we came back and played, I should say each week, we came back and played. We always tried to do something that was better than what the other guy did. So it was kind of like that was like. But we enjoyed doing it. It wasn't like we were in competition to be like, hey, if you would do it. No, it was all fun. And we had a great time doing it. When we were in 4th grade, the band teacher, his name was Ed Walsh, and this is pretty crazy. He took him and I in his Volkswagen van. We got okayed by our parents back, and this is back in the day because no way this would ever happen.
Yeah.
And he drove us in his Volkswagen van during the school day to the other schools, and we played in the other school concerts. So picture all the other elementary schools. Yeah. Here we come in, and we're going to play in your concert.
Why'd you do it? Just to play?
He asked us to play because we could play pretty well already. And so we got the opportunity to do that, and we also got to play in the night concerts. So we were like, we thought we were kind of cool. Oh, we get to play in the different concerts,
Kind of fueled up the ego a little bit, right?
Yeah. Well, it got us more into playing too, and we had fun with it. It was really, I'm going to say it was more fun. We always laughed. We always had a great time. It was the key right there. Even though we were like always competing with each other, we always laughed, and we're still really great friends. Yeah. After all these years, you know what I mean? And he still plays, and I still play. So him and I together, and like I said, plus with my older brothers playing. So that was 4th grade, and we got to do, the band teacher, Ed Walsh, was a really nice guy. He featured us on some duets, and he spoke to our parents. We got into taking some lessons, and which helped really, speed us up in ability. And then when I got a little older, I started doubling. Not that much older. Started playing instruments like clarinet. I started playing the bass. Okay. The guitar, the piano, the flute. Yeah. And then it just kind of kept steamrolling from there. So
just to get a timeline, right? So you started playing sax in 4th
grade, like the typical.
Yeah, I feel like that's when most people start playing an instrument in school. would you say that you gravitated very quick towards it? Like you
well, you know,
picked
we
it up
had
very well?
we had so much fun with everything we were doing.
Yeah.
You know, and we had a good time. We really loved to play, but we also laughed and just had a good time. It was just, you know, everything was always positive. So why wouldn't you want to play? It was always, you know.
It was just like a natural habit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I played sports like all the other kids, and we loved sports.
Yeah.
You know, but it was like something about the music was always positive. There was no losing team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
it was just winning, right? You either win or learn. There's really no.
And it was positive.
Yeah.
You know, there's something about playing music with somebody else and the energy flow and working together. I mean, it's a cool thing. And you know, we ended up having lots of friends, believe it or not, in the band. That we became very tight. And plus, since his older brother played, my older brothers played, you know, it just made it easier. You know, it was like, you know, you just.
It's like everybody did it, right? You were around it.
Yeah. It was very cool. So that's fourth grade. By the time I was in, I'm going to say sixth grade is when I started to try. When I was in fifth grade, I actually picked up my brother Paul's trumpet, and I started learning how to play something on his trumpet.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had to sneak doing it because when I was younger, you know, he wouldn't allow me to play anything. You know what I mean? And I remember trying to learn a song by Chuck Mangione called "Feel So Good." Trying to learn how to play that on the trumpet. That was like a famous song back in the 70s.
Gotcha.
So that was something that, you know, that was, you know, I was like, I really dug live music, natural, you know, music and interacting. So, and then, you know, sixth grade, I started to play a little bit of clarinet. And then seventh grade, I'm going to say seventh, eighth grade, that's when I started to play a little bit of flute, and then I got into playing the bass around, because what happened was, in that time zone too, right around there, seventh, eighth grade, my buddy, this guy Rob DiMartino, who's
shout out to Rob.
Shout out to Rob. Well, shout out to Ronnie D'Ambrosi. That's the Ronnie D.
Ronnie D in the house.
And so Rob played guitar. My friend Frank Scavone played bass. We had this guy, Jim Mathias, played drums, and eventually this guy we called Barney played drums. Because he looked like Flintstone, the Flintstones. Barney Flintstone, whatever. I can't even think of what it's called. But anyway, so I ended up playing bass because my friend Frank, he's gonna laugh.
Yeah.
He was like, he was missing rehearsals. He was, you know, so we were like, you know, we wanted to do a gig coming up. So, and Frank now still plays bass. He's an amazing bass player. Just to go. But I did a bunch of the gigs because Frank didn't make it.
Yeah.
And what happened was
Frank slacking. He's slacking.
He had a belly ache.
Yeah.
So what happened was we had a job coming up at the community center that we wanted to play. And we were in like eighth grade, and we played as a three-piece, drums, guitar, and bass. And it was interesting because I sang and played bass.
Really?
Yeah, and it was fun. It was. I'm going to say it was challenging because here you try to lay down the groundwork.
Yeah, of course.
And try to sing sometimes rhythmically different. So that was. Yeah. And I did that eighth grade, ninth grade. I played the bass, and then little by started playing the piano in the ninth grade and guitar during that time too. So.
Now, is this before the? I know you talked to me about the incident, right, with the toothbrush.
Oh, toothbrush is later on. Yeah,
that's late, so that didn't happen yet.
No, it didn't happen yet. That was my brother Paul and I, the trumpet player, wrestling, kidding around, and that's how we got the puncture in my vocal cords. You know, that was a pretty substantial incident.
Yeah.
Let's say that happened.
Yeah.
So when that happened,
that was how old were you?
I was in high school.
Okay.
And what happened was, believe it or not, I was supposed to be getting braces at some point, and then I couldn't get braces because of the puncture. I was told by the doctor if I was a quarter inch over, I'd be dead.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
We were wrestling. We were fooling around. We always were. Him and I always were like fighting, fooling around. We drove. I mean, my poor mom. We drove her crazy. Yeah. Because it was, there's also us, the boys just going nuts. I mean, if the fan was on in the kitchen, we'd throw the bread up and it'd hit it across the room. You know what I mean? Like just like doing obnoxious things. So at one point we were like, all of a sudden we're wrestling and I fell and the toothbrush went into my throat. And it wasn't like we were trying to kill each other. You know what I mean? And so then I never forget going to the hospital for that, and the blood was like coming out of.
Is it really?
It was definitely I'm gonna say a rememberable situation that occurred. You know what I mean? So and and then I had to be operated on that day. As soon as I went in. You know what I mean? So I had a hole. And they took me in right away, and I got operated on, and I just remember waking up and being like, "What the heck am I?" You know what I mean? So that was, and that's how my voice has always been raspy. And what happened was I've been singing through that. I actually stopped singing for a little bit, but then I started singing again because what happened was. My vocal cords healed, and I was singing classical music, which was easy to sing, but once you start singing the rock stuff, it was making my vocal cords worse. And then I ended up having an injured vocal cord, and then my vocal cords weren't coming together. So it was like
all sorts of
stuff. It was like, the vocal stuff is just, I still like to sing, but I can actually sing now after about 20 years of not being able to sing. I was so long.
That's why is that?
Because my vocal cords weren't coming together. So if I could sing something, I didn't have. It's like not having enough support to hold pitch.
Gotcha.
So you know what I mean. So and also my voice would get really raspy.
Yeah.
It'd sound like I just drank a bottle of tequila. You know what I mean? So, so and like one song later, and but now it's I just got to be careful of what I drink and
really, so what you drink affects you?
Oh yeah. Still, I mean, it's amazing. That's why my voice is a little bit more raspy because I haven't been as careful. Going on the weekend, having some champagne or
bubbly drinks, right?
Yeah, tequila is like the worst, and the doctor's like, "You're not supposed to have dark chocolate." I'm like, I was told that there's still a list of things I'm not supposed to have. It's like, all right, well. How about if I have this? This isn't as bad, right? Because there's no way you're gonna follow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it's hard.
Everybody's gonna cheat a little bit, and I'm definitely cheating on that. So. Yeah. But anyway.
When it happened, though, right? Like, were you upset because here you are, you're getting into music, right? No, and this happens, right? So you must have been really upset.
Yeah. That was I have to say because it affected me. Really affected, I'm going to say, my life, essentially, because I was able to sing pretty well. Because when we had the bands, I was the person that sang everything, even as an all-state vocalist, too. I could sing, and then I just didn't, from the injury, I just was losing the support, and my vocal cords
couldn't sing the same, right?
It was hard. I mean, I can sing, but I still lost. My range is. I lost almost like a fifth going down. So it's rough to not sound the way you could sound. You know what I mean?
Like you always have that in your mind. Like I could have sounded better.
Yeah. I mean, I had a very big sounding voice. I could really fill a room. I think maybe if I had the right doctor a long time ago, because it took me, when my vocal cords started to heal again, because I was really closer to COVID, because not having kids in the classroom.
Yeah, you weren't screaming, right?
I wasn't talking. Yeah, well, we're not allowed to scream, though.
Well, okay. That's my bad.
We don't drop the F-bomb in class.
No, of course.
But, yes, but resting the vocal cords, that was pretty substantial, so that did help. And then I was on medication for a while, and which also helped. Which I don't like taking any medication actually. So so as soon as it came back together, it was okay. I was like, that's it. I'm not taking the medication anymore. Stop. Totally stop.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but I always believe singing helps your playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We've definitely talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could, like, say, for example, if I'm gonna play like Frosty the Snowman or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that song because I know everybody knows it. I should be able to hum the song in my head and then pick up my horn and play it. And the singing does help because your pitch is better, and what's in your head is going to come out of your horn, especially as a wind player. So I always believe that anybody that plays an instrument should automatically sing in the chorus, and vice versa. Because I think most of the chorus students don't have the musicality that the band kids can have if they're into it. You know what I mean? If you're not into it, it doesn't make a difference. You can be in any class. But if you're really into it, you want to get strong at doing it, then you should cross over and do a little bit of it. Just like every musician that plays a wind instrument or a band instrument should play either piano or guitar. And I wish I knew that even younger because I started playing the piano in 9th grade from believe it or not, the general music teacher. His name was Homer Fanos.
Okay.
Amazing piano player, and he actually left teaching because he was so good, and he got hired and he played. Yeah, he played all over the place. Because I remember, I would go back, even though he wasn't my teacher, I'd go back and visit him and talk to him because I was and then I asked him, I said, well, could you show me how to play some piano? And that's the guy that showed me how to, to start. I'm like, I want to learn how to play. And he actually started playing the saxophone because of me. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, which is pretty wild. Yeah.
Don't tell me you taught him.
No, I showed him some stuff, but but pretty much, he and then he picked it up and he started playing it, and then it was like the following year he left teaching, which was for me was sad because I used to visit him all the time. But I always wondered. I always used to say, "Why are you here?" You know what I mean?
You used to say that to him.
Oh yeah, because like a lot of teachers, especially in they're not respected for what they can offer or what they can give. There are some teachers that are, but in the midst of things, a lot of times they're not. Like he is a guy who was teaching general music, but the guy was an amazing piano player and then not using his skills. Like that guy should have been playing for everybody in the whole district, and he wasn't. I'm like, listen to this guy play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just think the district becomes better and more enjoyable because now you see hey, this guy's got this to offer. A lot of times, you got a lot of people in the district and they don't even know you have a degree in this, you have a degree in that. I have a music theory background. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't teach music theory in high school. You know what I mean? But I got music theory. I studied as hard as I studied the saxophone. I actually studied harder doing music theory and harmony and composition.
Wow.
Learned how to orchestrate. Learned how to write for a big band. You know what I mean?
The whole nine.
Oh yeah. And I used to go into Manhattan once a week to study with Dave Berger, who was a big band guy. He was Lincoln Center Jazz and. And it was detailed, and I'm like, I got all this knowledge, and then I was doing a master's program through LIU, and like I said, doing some stuff through Manhattan School of Music, and just studying with some people that were pretty detailed, and it's like, hey, I got a lot to offer, you know what I mean? I can actually really help, But. Anyway, so that's where I look at Homer. I looked at him, and once again he left, and back in that time, musicians were able to make a lot of money, and do pretty well because everything was live music. People listen to records.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it wasn't like where we have the internet and it can just
you just click it, boom.
For me that takes away. Because it's the waiting game of, hey, I know that this album's coming out. but I don't have a computer to click on it. Now I gotta wait for it. It's like waiting for Christmas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it makes things more exciting.
Yeah. And then, like, say, like, the difference of music back growing up with me was if I listened to an album, right? I'm gonna say a record because I grew up with records because of my uncle and my older brothers and stuff like that. And I kind of held on to records until the 90s. Think about that. You know what I mean? I know you weren't born yet.
I wasn't even a thought, guys. Not even a thought.
But you'd get an album and you'd listen to the whole thing, beginning to end. And sometimes you'd listen to it once, but since you bought it, you go, you listen to it like, I really like this track, but then you listen to it again and you're like, something, I did actually like that track. And then, you're growing as a listener and developing because you're learning how to listen to stuff. First time I listened to jazz, I hated it. I mean, if you believe that, I listened to Dave Brubeck and I was like, that's some weird sounding stuff, like the saxophone sounds a little weird, and then when I listened to him again later on, but I was exposed to people like David Sanborn, who was a great player, Michael Brecker, and then when I listened to, the guy's name was Paul Desmond, who was playing with Dave Brubeck. When I listened to him later on, then I started to go, hey, something, I matured as a player, but it's because of my listening as a younger person. It's not like TikTok where you play something for 20 seconds and you don't even ingest it. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to take time to ingest music, and you have to listen to it more than once.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Like, I remember you showed me Michael Brecker. And you showed me like his solo. I forgot what the song was. But he had this crazy solo, right? And at first I thought, not gonna lie, I thought it was a little strange. I'm like, what? Like, this is a little weird,
What's this guy showing?
Why is he showing me this? And it's like, it's just crazy. And then I look at it again. And then I look at it again. And then I'm like, this is actually pretty cool. And the next thing you know, maybe once in a while I'm in my car and I'm blasting it.
I mean, but that's where, your listening ability matures and you start to really, like I said, ingest what's happening. Because in certain styles of music, there's a lot going on. Unfortunately, in a lot of what's happening today is everything is so simplified and you're listening to the same 4 chords over and over again, or the same parts going in and out. So, the creativity is a lot less. There's not as much going on harmony-wise, and everything is repeated. Whereas back at that time, it was like played from beginning to end, and whatever happened from the beginning to the end is, there's going to be so much going on. So, and for me, that's really what improvisation is all about. It's like a real improviser doesn't really know what they're going to play. You just pick up the horn and you just start playing.
I mean, it's funny you say that because, one person who really comes to my mind is Joel Albright. I listen to his live performances, right? And one thing I notice he does is that every time he plays a song, he always does something different. Like, it's never the same thing.
Well, that's like, as a pop singer, Daryl Hall from Hall & Oates, he's kind of like that. Like, even though he's a pop singer, but you listen to him sing, and he's very creative. That's a form of improv, and it's kind of cool. Like, always developing. You know what I mean? It's one of the things that if old school mentalities, improv it's always creative. You're not playing the same solo twice. Like, unfortunately, in the bar scene, when you go out, like say you're hanging out with your friends, you may hear a guitar player play the same solo 20 times in a row with the band. And it's like, for me, that's not really playing. I could see you following that as a guideline because it's a solo and maybe, unless it's a real,
really particular.
But for the most part, songs should be able to be opened, we're doing this arrangement, but we're going to cut in a solo. And there was a time where people went and really enjoyed people's musicianship, you know what I mean? And that, for me, has kind of gotten lost along the way. And now people go to see DJs, which is another thing. I'm like, of gonna go see the DJ. I like, whatever. I don't even want to mention anybody's names because I don't want to give anybody.
As a musician, right?
Yeah.
Does the whole, I guess, the DJ thing, does that kind of piss you off?
It doesn't. For me, it's disappointing. It's not that it pisses me off. It just goes to show how our society has really just made music just really dumbed music down. Because if you listen to what's happening in a lot of the stuff that's being played, especially like the house music and stuff like that, it's all machine driven. And musicians have been replaced by virtual instruments, which is really AI. It's all artificial intelligence playing it, samples and cutting and pasting, and especially live music shouldn't be samples and cut and pasting. Yeah, if you want to use that to enhance your performance because you're performing live with it, but when it's fully that, and you're going to see a live DJ, a live DJ already has a pre-recorded set.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how's it live? You know what I mean?
Well, I guess the thing when they do the
scratching, but unless you want to hear somebody MC, that's one thing, and that's where, if I've seen some performers like a guy named like Marcus Miller, who's an amazing musician. He's a bass player. He actually learned how to play the clarinet first, and then learned how to play the bass. It's he would use sometimes like guys mixing, like even like a DJ, spinning and do some tracks with loops and stuff like that. But he had all his live guys playing, and music was just incredible, off the charts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he could get away with doing that. Where I'm gonna say, when it's just that, it's a little disappointing. And because I feel like it should be a totally different category than calling it music or calling it live music, because I practice for years.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't just press a button. I can press a button, and believe me, have I DJ'd? Yes, of course. I played weddings, parties. I've sat there and somebody's like, I could do a continuous on a gig where I'll sit there and play piano, guitar, whatever you want to play, sax. Oh, would you guys, play some tunes in between? So, yeah, I'll play some tunes in between. That's automatically DJing and having like 2 CD players rolling at the same time, or running your Mac or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like, but that's not something I'm like, that's something have I done? Yeah, have I done? But that's not why I got into music. I got into music because it's the love of playing. And that's where I'm going to say maybe you'll find a few people that DJ'd that played some music, but once you start to get passionately into music, it's hard to just put your instrument down and do that. It's not that easy because, think about it. You're spending years, not hours, years playing, and you see your development as a player. It takes a long time to really play. Like in the martial arts world, it's like after 10 years of martial arts, then you're finally becoming a martial artist.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Process.
That's what the great ones say, not the ones that go for a year and go or 3 years and they get that black belt. But realistically speaking, now you're finally learning how to be. When you get your black belt in martial arts, like music, it's like you're finally learning how to play. That's realistically speaking. That's the way music is. Okay, you learn how to do everything. Okay, you can do this. You can play a level 6. Well, you finally learn it. Now let's make it sound like music. Kids go to Allstate. They're really they can learn how to play, but they're still learning. I listen to Allstate kids and I'm like, they're still learning, because can you play perfectly in tune? Can you play with a great groove? Can you play with a great feel? That's where it's hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anybody can play a concert B-flat scale, but it's the musicality of it. It's playing with great feel, great intonation, and musical. And that's a big thing, because I know the guys that I listen to, that I record with, that these guys play music for a living. That's what they focus on.
the little details.
Yeah. I mean, and once again, like I said, it does make all the difference in the world, but a lot of times we don't really recognize it. It's like, and that's where the whole really learning how to listen intently, like going back to the albums and listening again. Because the first time you listen to something, you're gonna maybe catch maybe 20% of what was going on.
Yeah.
You're not gonna listen to anything in super detail, and then you gotta, it's a process. You really gotta learn how to listen.
Gotcha. Man, what a tangent. So continuing this, right? So you're in high school.
Yeah.
Now you're going into college, right? You went to Berkley?
Went to Berkley.
Okay.
Yes, I went to Berkley.
Now that's a big music school.
Yeah.
Right. So now you go from high school. You're probably the best musician in the high school, right? I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
So now you're.
You hear that, Ronnie?
But now you're going to Berkley and you're with the big dogs.
Yeah.
So how do you feel going in there?
It was definitely interesting because I knew how to do certain things better than a lot of kids that were there, a lot of students, but then there were certain things I didn't know how to do that well at all. So certain things were, like, for example, my reading skills were way above most of the kids that were there. And because they did an audition, they rated you. And my rating for that was like up very high. I think it was like 7 or 8 or something like that out of 9.
Okay.
So I could go through different things. I was a very good sight reader. And it was something, that I enjoyed doing as a kid, believe it or not. I was a person that would take a book and just read the whole book and practice, you know what I mean? And then take another one and maybe another time. So that was a skill that a lot of jazz musicians, because Berkley did a lot of jazz, their reading skills weren't as good, but their improv skills were good. Where my improv skills were okay. And that's where some.
Oh, I'm actually shocked. I actually would have thought
No, mine were okay. In comparison to guys that were on the road. There was a guy who was just leaving. As I got in, his name was Steve Vai, who was a guitar player, who played just amazing. And you listen to someone like him, see a guy like Eric Marienthal come in, and you hear these guys play, and and just certain players go, wow, these guys could really play. You know what I mean? And I could play, but I was like, I was an all-county kid, but in comparison to that, we kind of sucked. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So like going in there was a little bit of like a rude awakening.
Yeah, because it was like in comparison, like it's like your little hood in comparison to the world.
Yeah.
It was like, well, my little hood is pretty lame. The world and the way these guys are playing for a living that's another whole thing. That's why I said getting into the detail of playing and all those nuances and playing with good time, good feel, and building. And the other thing was I didn't know how to chord read as well as a lot of these guys. So, for example, if you were looking, we had a thing called a real book, which was a jazz book, and it would have like different chords and melodies. And when I first got there, I didn't have enough money to buy the book in E flat and B flat and C.
Man.
Yeah. So.
Let me get that.
Let me see my phone.
Just make sure this is recording still. Perfect.
Okay.
So sometimes, things like this happen.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. So, all right, so getting back to, so I couldn't afford a book in 3 books. I could only afford 1. So I bought one in concert pitch.
Okay.
So I played alto, which was in E flat, and tenor in B flat. So I had to learn how to transpose. So when I was in college, my first semester, I learned how to transpose. I could read already, but it was hard going back, transposing for alto and then transposing for tenor, because I played alto in one ensemble, tenor in another. Then I also was in the piano ensemble where I learned how to walk a bass and stuff like that. That was something unusual, which I didn't really know how to do. And just, I knew how to play the voicings, but I didn't know really how to walk. So it was something like left-hand walking. So that was a challenge right then and there to try play and improvise, but transpose at the same time and learn how to play, through the chords and stuff like that. So that was the big challenge, where most of the improv that we were doing was blues and a lot of the same keys. And now this stuff was all of a sudden getting more detailed. So it was definitely more of a challenge.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was some of the teachers, like if you thought you sounded pretty good and you could play a song in a certain key, all of a sudden they go, well, we're not going to do it in C, we're going to do it in D flat. And all of a sudden you couldn't play the song.
Why would they do? Would they just do that just to bust your chops, or
well, just to show you should be able to play the song in every key.
Yeah.
And be like, well, we can't. One of the professors did that, and one of the songs I'll never forget. And it was like, we all thought we sounded good, and then he transposed the key. I think it was D flat, and I had a solo on the tenor, and it was like, hey, now I'm in E flat. I'm like, I suck at E flat.
It's like that one half step just changes everything.
So that made, people, and this is one thing that people don't realize. You don't listen to somebody go, oh, he sucks, he's playing in this key. You know what I mean? You just go, he sucks. Or you go, he can play, and that's it. You don't go, he's in this key, he's in that key. No. Every key. See, the hard thing about playing, say, a wind instrument in comparison to playing guitar. Guitar, you can transpose a little easier because of the neck. So if I'm playing something in G, a 3rd fret, and then I want to play it 5th fret on A, that transposition is just moving your hand up based on chords. Some of the stuff is a little bit more difficult, but moving up and down, a lot of guys will play pattern oriented, where everything feels totally different. If I played in the key of D flat and then played in the key of C, it feels different on the sax.
It definitely is more of a feel thing.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like guitar going from C to D. It may not feel different. Some keys, yes, it will, but not as drastic. And then tuning-wise, too, like just play a C sharp on the sax and then play a D, and it's like, okay, open to close sound, and holy crap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, so that's the challenge of the wind playing. And that's why, like, you have accompanying instruments, like accompanying on the guitar, accompanying on the piano. It's easy to accompany yourself if you learn, like I teach the music in our lives class at Ames right now. And if I teach you 6 chords on the guitar, and then I put the guitar capo on, and now you play 6 chords in another key, well, now you got 12 chords, realistically speaking. You understand what I'm saying? And we're still learning the same thing. So if I played a G chord, and then I put the guitar capo on the 3rd fret and played the same G chord, but in position now I'm playing a B flat chord. And so there's certain things that are simple when you're playing certain instruments, and certain things that are difficult. The hard thing about the guitar is you don't know what the heck you're playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I asked you to play on the 2nd string up here, what note is that? You'd be like, I have no idea. Where on us wind players, we always know what note we're playing.
Yeah.
So it's like, but you put them both together, like sax, guitar, and even like the piano in there, and it really kind of sheds light and helps you become a better player overall, because you understand how they're going to play, so you know how to play to them better. Interesting concepts.
Yeah.
So
you're going through Berkley, right?
Yeah.
As you're going through it, do you start to feel like you're, I guess, like creeping up, right, on the other kids?
Yeah, no. First semester was definitely a little scary because I was put in some higher level classes with older kids, so to get the hiccups in class really loud out of nervousness.
Really?
Which is the
I see. I can't see that. Like one thing I'll say about Mr. Pert is that like you never get like anxious, or like you're so chill and like laid back.
Well,
so
I appreciate that. No, I when I was in that class, because everything was going fast and I was trying to understand all the knowledge, like even though I passed all the tests and I was able to play, it still was a different way of learning. And I had guys that were in their 3rd year of college in class with me, and I'm like a freshman walking in, and I'm like, trying to pay attention, and like, and then if you, like the professor didn't really have the patience. So if he asked you something and you weren't answering it, you know, especially me, I'd be like, start hiccuping. Then he'd get pissed because I'm hiccuping in class. And that happened to me probably like 10 times, believe it or not. It was like, you know, and...
just in that class? Or?
In that class, in that class. Because I was one of those, because that was a very intense class, and there was arguments with the professor.
Really?
You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, because different ways of, oh, you know, it's not a half diminished chord, it's a minor 7 flat 5, and going back and cursing each other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then my first ensemble I played in at college, which was also it was also mixed ages. There was guys that one guy that was almost 30 in the ensemble. Wow. You know what I mean? Yeah. There was one other person that was closer to my age, but everybody was older. And first ensemble, the guys in the ensemble were smoking weed. So that made it a little rough, because here I am, I'm in college, and these guys, and they were older, you know what I mean? So, you know, and
they kind of knew the drill, right? They were...
Yeah, and here I am walking in, like, you know, that, like, made it weird, because, you know, like, you know, you think about being in school.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like, wait a second, what's, you know, so that took a little while, and like I said, just getting comfortable to reading, and just, you know, but I sat and I did practice, like, you know, they had practice rooms, so I did practice.
So you go in there and practice.
Yeah, and go over what I needed to learn, and you know, keep my chops up, and there was an older guy, this guy Tom, who played the trombone. He was really nice. He was a senior and I was a freshman. He kind of like took me under his wing, we'll say, and was like, you know, kind of helping me out, going, you know, hey, you know, do this, or, you know, you get like with the transpositions and stuff like that. And he was cool because I played in an ensemble with him. He wasn't a jerk going like, okay, look at this young guy coming and playing. No, he was cool, because I was like, you know, even though I was in that ensemble, I was green as anything. You know, I really, like, you know, everything was a guessing game because of the harmony and the reading, and, like, you know, the jazz approach. Wasn't reading the melodies down. That was easy, because that's not what we did a lot. We played a melody. Sometimes we play if it was a group with some charts, but there's always open solos on every song.
Wow.
And sometimes, you know, you're reading the chord charts, and, you know, if I'm reading the chord charts in C and I'm transposing for alto, and, you know, and you know, if I got lost in something, he'd be like, "Oh, you're here," or he'd go, "Sing the melody in your head while you're playing. So if you get lost, you know where you are." And that was one of the things that helped me the most. And it was one of the trombone player that told me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I probably would have been lost all the time.
How was your relationship with the other saxes? Like, were you guys kind of like cool with each other, or was there like a little bit of a beef? Like, hey man, like I'm the smart kid.
It varied. Some guys were great, and some guys were, you know, had an attitude, you know, because you're their competition. They looked at you that way. You know, I didn't grow up with that attitude, because, like I said, my best friend who played sax, we had a great time about it. And we kind of like just helped each other out. We played together all the time. It was more about playing together.
Yeah.
There was a person up in college who I played duets with, which was really a lot of fun. But then there was some people that were like kind of jerks. You know, I'm not gonna lie. You know, it's
so it was like a mix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now after college. Now, first of all, what did you major?
Well, okay, so when I was there, I was a composition major.
Composition, so like making music?
Yes. Well, that's what I was saying. I was not a ed major. I didn't want to teach kids.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, when I first, because I knew I was a pain in the ass in the class. So who would want to teach me? You know what I mean? You know? So that's kind of the way I looked at it. I kind of looked at it like, you know, I wouldn't want to teach myself. I'm like, man, it's not like I'll go into. I love music, but I was like, I'll go into composition, and that's how I got into all the arranging and orchestration and things like that. I really did enjoy doing that. And then what happened was I actually coming back. And then, you know, working and playing and trying to figure out what I'm doing.
Now, how old are you at this time?
Oh, right now I'm in my early 20s.
Early 20s.
21. And then,
So you just graduated college.
I didn't finish my degree at first.
Really?
Yeah.
So how many years did you do?
I had 2 years there.
Okay.
And then
And then you left.
Then I left because I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I was playing. I still was always playing and gigging, yeah. Because,
what made you want to leave though? Like, what was the?
Because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Because it was very confusing. There was a lot going on, and you know, I wasn't sure yet. So when I went home, I was playing.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much played every weekend, and I worked during the day. I taught lessons, and I was doing that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And then what happened was I was like playing with different people all the time. I probably play with like 21 different groups in a year. You know, between subbing and playing, doing shows, and whatever was out there, I was going to play. And I got to meet a lot of people, a lot of friends. One of the guys I ran into along the way, and this is how I got into going back, was a guitar player who I was writing with, and we put a band together, and he was a teacher at the time, and he was going to adjunct at Stony Brook, and I was teaching him how to record at the time, and sequence and things like that. He didn't, you know, he was learning how to do it, and we were friends, and you know, I was showing him some of the stuff. Then he taught the class in Stony Brook, and I was like, I should be teaching the class. You know what I mean?
Like you're teaching him, and
Showing
he's
him,
a teacher.
Showing him, yeah, he's a teacher.
At college.
Well, he was adjuncting, but he was a teacher, I think, in Rockville, or something like that. And really nice guy, really good musician. But he was like, I go, well, how, you know? And he was like, well, you got to get your teaching degree. He goes, then you can teach, yeah.
So then you're like, okay.
So then I was like, you know something, I'm going for my, so what happened was, at that point in time, it was a couple of weeks in, and I think it was second week in on college, and I went back to Five Towns College to get my ed portion of the degree, because I already had a bunch of credits, but I didn't have the ed degree.
The teaching stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was kind of like I had I guess you could say it was like a 2-year degree, but I needed to have, you know, the educational degree in order to teach. And I went and I auditioned, and there was a guy named Steve Kenyon who was a sax player, listened to me, and he said, well, you already passed, they already gave out, they're not giving out any scholarships or anything. I said, well, can I audition for a scholarship anyway? and I go, and he goes, all right, he goes, well, I'll, you know, and he was really nice. You know, so I played, we went through the whole, I mean, it was like chords, listened to all these chords, I was naming all the chords he played, I sight read whatever, improvising all different keys, played a whole bunch of tunes for him. You know, we were in there for a while, and we went, you know, the whole rigmarole of playing. And so then he and like I said, great guy, he's a great musician. He came back and he got me a full ride.
Wow.
Yeah, which was really cool. You know, and I was shocked that, you know, because I was like, you know, I can't afford to go to college, you know, this time, you know. And so then I went there, and they hooked me up with. So even though I was going to college there, I was able to take one-on-one classes with different people. So that's how, like, even through like some of when I was doing my master's, I got to do what was called independent study.
Okay.
And so it was great. I got to do some independent study, learning. I got an ability to learn how to like record, like audio recording class. Did one-on-one with a guy named Bill Finity, who was another great guy. I got an opportunity to do, like I said, the jazz study.
Yeah.
You know, I got so they were great. In return, what I was asked to do was play at all their open houses. I played at all their open houses at, like, when I was there, and then I also played at, say, I played with them at Lincoln Center. I played the Brass and Woodwind Conference, and I also played at Carnegie Hall.
Oh, wow.
Because of it. Yeah, which was pretty cool. So I got an opportunity to play a whole bunch of things, which I was like, you know, you're asking me to play, and I'm like, yeah. You know, at that time, you know, yes, I was making money playing, but when it came to playing, like for me, it's like, yeah, no, I just love to play. So I did a bunch of different things, and at the time there was a guy named Marty Cohen who was one of the, and he was really nice. They allowed me to take extra classes. I took like 22 to 24 credits a semester. Which,
wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, well, they let me do the independent study, and you know what I mean. So I took the composition stuff that I had, and then I actually added the ed part, and then also audio recording. So I learned all that stuff because that college is. So I was like, you know something, and they hooked me up. So I did very few classes with the regular students. I played in a few ensembles. Like I played in 3 ensembles for them a semester. But a lot of the music courses I got to do independently. Just the core classes like sociology, those were regular classes.
Yes.
You know, which is another whole kind of class.
Yeah. So you must have finished in pretty soon, right? With your masters. And how long did it take you? All said and done.
Well, yeah, no, masters was it was a year and a half.
I was gonna say, because if you're taking 22, 24, you're gonna.
Yeah, and I did adult. I have 2 masters. I don't have.
Do
one.
you really?
Yeah.
What's the other one?
Well, I did another one in music composition because I loved
Okay.
it. You know, because I kind of I was actually going for my doctorate degree, and then there was just too much
Dr. Perticone.
Yeah, I was going because the district. I was told by the director of music at the time that they'll accept a doctorate of music. They were calling it a DMA, but they would only allow after going through almost a year of the program. They would only accept a PhD or EDD. So I was like, really? I was told I got it in writing, and so then I went into the dean and they hooked me up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say because I had more than enough credits, and they were like, "Well, we'll fix this, we'll change this, and we get another degree."
Yeah.
So, you know, but the second master's doesn't really mean anything anyway. But
so it was a good learning experience.
oh, it was great. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna say all the stuff that I got the chance to do, and some of the people I got to meet. Were great. I gotta say, I met a lot of really nice guys. I got to sit in, when I was at when I did my ed degree at 5 Towns, there was a guy named Chuck Minot there who was one of the writers for some of the books. I did his recording sessions when he was doing, and which I thought was really cool. Yeah, I'm a student, but I'm doing the recording sessions with the older guys. You know, which was cool. You know, but I was an older student coming back, so it wasn't it was kind of weird, you know, because they were starting to do a master's program there, but there was a lot of good players that came in when I was there. This guy Don Torillo, John Mendolia, I'm trying to remember some of the names. I think Jason Chapman maybe was there. Phil Gray, a fantastic trumpet player. And they had all these, John Sawicki. So there was a core of really good players.
Yeah.
And I remember when we played at the Brass and Woodwind Conference, we kicked ass.
Yeah.
And they knew we kicked ass. Yeah, that was one of the highlights. It was weird because after that, they kind of were cutting back on scholarships for the players because they gave out scholarships to a lot of players. The guy Marty was pushing the college to get recognition, and I'm going to say we played against Queens and we played against Manhattan, and I was like, no, we can play. You know what I mean? You guys sound good, but we had a lot of guys that were already pros playing. You know what I mean? It was a different level. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, and I'll never forget that when we did that. And it was like it was a buzz, and then the college killed it. But I only did it for that one semester.
So then you left, right?
I was done already. You know what I mean? I was out, and that college also, I believe it or not, had a basketball team that was like a Division III that won a title one year. I mean, how messed up is that? And then they didn't have a basketball team either. So how do you win a title?
And then,
and then
can't see a program. That's nuts.
So they did a lot of weird stuff, but once again, for me, the people that I got to meet, a lot of friends, a lot of great people. More people from that place than Berkley stayed with me.
Interesting.
Like I met a lot of nice people at Berkley, but the problem was Berkley was in out. I'd see somebody for a semester, then they'd be gone. You know what I mean? Or like so. And like I said, it was definitely some really good musicians that were there and came in and out. So same, it's like the same vibe as the other college, but just, bigger.
Gotcha. So now you're finished up, you got 2 masters now, right? So do you just go straight into teaching, or do you kind of want to test the waters and just kind of, do some gigs and, get your name around?
Well, I'm going to say, I was always gigging. I never stopped gigging, And I did the second master's while I was teaching,
Gotcha.
Because how I got my teaching job, which is really interesting, was after I finished getting my ed degree, the first degree, I was playing in a big band, and one of the trumpet players, and I can't remember his name. I'm trying to remember his name. In the back of the band, you sit in the big band, you're in the front, and he's in the back. He started to talk to me during one of the breaks, and we got into conversation. He was asking me about taking on some students. He was getting ready to retire. And I said, you're getting ready to retire? I said, I just got my teaching degree. And he goes, well, I got the perfect job for you. This guy's name was Frank Sagaris. He goes, so what happened was he went with me on the job interview in Massapequa at Birch Lake.
Really?
And which was pretty wild because he taught there. He was teaching there for years.
No, you didn't live in Massapequa at the time, right?
No, not at the time. I had bought a house from gigging, believe it or not, before I was doing. So picture this: I'm gigging a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to college, and then student teaching while I'm still gigging, and I bought a house. I bought a house from gigging.
Wow.
Yeah, gigging and so I'm trying to I'm working 2 jobs. I'm student teaching, which I'm getting no money for.
Yeah.
And then gigging all weekend, and then trying to go in and be like my eyes are super red. You know what I mean? And cause who's sleeping?
Yeah.
And that was, I gotta say, that those months was probably one of the toughest times because I'm trying to make an income, support a home, and student teach at the same time and be professional the whole time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is not easy to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Especially with gigs, right? Probably late at night.
Yeah. And I took whatever I can get.
Yeah.
And I taught, like I said, four days a week. I was teaching private lessons after school. One of the students that I had now he's a bunch of years later, high school band teacher out in Connecticut. So East Hartford, Connecticut, which is interesting to run into, after all these years.
Yeah.
So I ran into him at an Old County.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he recognize you, or did you recognize him?
No, he was the one. Well, he recognized me, but he was also recommending me to conduct for Old County. Which was kind of cool. I did the Old County jazz thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was fun. So.
You did that in Connecticut?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like their regional jazz group. Like we do our Old County. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the guy gets up there and waves his arms.
Yeah. Do your thing and be like, "Yo, improv, right?"
Yeah.
Improv.
So I got my job from there and met a lot of good, nice teachers. We had a woman named Janet Holdridge who was the director at the time, and she was really nice. And the district was pretty intense.
Massapequa.
Oh yeah, it was pretty intense when
Really?
I first came in. Yeah, because there was we were a group. The band always had gold with distinction or gold band. We were always always level. The high school band was always playing level 6. So I come in the first year, and then I remember sitting in on the ensemble, and I ended up teaching almost every kid in the band, and every kid was playing level 6. You know, it was pretty much, you're in the wind ensemble, you played a level 6.
Yeah.
You know, that's changed a lot. You know, now it's like you hope kids are gonna play a level 6. So, you know, for anybody that's interested in teaching, if you're a level 6 player in 9th grade, you could easily become a teacher. You know, because it's so, you know, so many kids are not putting the time in to become a strong enough player. You know, and I still think that music is going to be in our schools. You know, but it's how is it going to be in our schools?
Yeah, it's going to be up to the level that it used to be, right?
Well, and technology is going to play a big role. Like they're trying to make what's called modern band now, adding in guitar, keyboard, and you know, it's if they do it right, it'll be great. But if they rely too much on electronics, then it's not going to be great, because the interaction of the instruments is the main thing that makes it great. You know, and that's kind of like the problem is in the world we have so much social media with technology, and you know, it's easy to create a song, you know, pressing a button, you know, without having a lot of talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, and you know, people think that they're musicians now because they can work a computer. You know. But if I said, hey, play this, I'll play that. Can you play that for me? You know what I mean? I mean, I did some sessions with people where they're like, you know, man, give me some improvisations, man. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like you don't even know what the word is called. It's improvisation, not improvisations or anything like that. Or you know, give me some of that. Or I need more beats. And it's like, this is what are we talking about here? You know what I mean? And you know, so. And people go to see, you know, some artists, like even say someone like Kanye, and you know, he'll be triggering samples, and people don't even know. Like he's just triggering samples. Anybody can do it. You know what I mean? You know, so, but the industry is changed. You know, but you hope that live music will always stay. Like going to see somebody like Billy Joel. You know, like you know, he's, you know, been around, but you're seeing a band, you're seeing people play, you're seeing some improv, you know, anything like that is beautiful.
Speaking of Billy Joel, word on the street, he asked you to be in his band.
Not Billy Joel,
No.
Wasn't Billy Joel, no, that's definitely not. Billy Joel's, I played with guys that played with him, and then a lot of the guys that played with him. The other thing is, there was a guy that asked me that does a lot of gigs now. Well, actually, it was named John Scarpula, who played with the Mike Del Judas guy, was asking me to play with their band. You know, at the time, you gotta understand, these guys were doing like Billy Joel groups and just made $75 or $100 back in the day. You know what I mean? It's like you're doing a wedding, you're making $350, you're doing this. So I got asked to do the cover groups that had guys from the band play. My Billy Joel Incident is when I got an opportunity to play with the sax player to play the Just the Way You Are solo, which was Phil Woods. That was probably one of the highlights of playing, because the best sax player that ever played with Billy Joel was Phil Woods. Yeah. Great, and I got an opportunity to play with him. I did play in his little big band. Fantastic. So, yeah, no, a bunch of people that I know are doing his gig now, and you know, they do it like, I don't even know if they're still doing it once a month. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Gotcha. Yeah, I what's it called? I remember in elementary school. I don't know, like I heard somebody say something about like you getting. I think Mr. Locke said something like, oh yeah, like you got an opportunity to play with Billy Joel's band, and
well that was there. It was not that band. It was the guy that does the group now. The guy that is who does the Billy Joel stuff, who sings with Billy Joel.
Gotcha.
That was, so, because I never was and I hate to say it, but I was never a big Billy Joel follower.
Really?
Yeah, no, I never was. I like I said, that's why I mentioned Phil Woods, because Phil Woods was the guy who played the saxophone, Just the Way You Are. And when I listened to him play, he was the saxophone player that got me really into saxophone playing.
Really?
Yeah. And when I heard, that was the first solo I ever learned, was Just the Way You Are. When I heard him play that solo, I was like, because I remember listening to them going, I like the sax player, but he's a good player. I liked him, but it wasn't like whoa, man, I really dig the way this guy plays. And I heard that solo, and I was like, that's a really freaking kick-ass solo. Listening to it going, like the way he played through the changes and everything, it was just like, that sounded like a master playing that thing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I gotta listen to that again. And then I actually learned how to play it off a record.
Really?
Yeah, and I put
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Does music sound different on a record versus like on a speaker?
Well, I mean, today, because of the MP3 files, yes. MP3 files, unless you're using a different type of file, the MP3 files are thinned out. But if, it's pre the MP3 files or before they're squashed out, because they're so compressed and they take out the lower sounds, like like say decibel levels, the volume. So if the volumes of certain sounds are like really low, they take it out.
Yeah.
So that's why a file is only like 1.3 megs. A real file would be like 48. And they're not going to do that with the music, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the difference is listening to a file that's 48 off of a record in comparison to something that's like, say 3.4 or something.
Yeah, wow, so there is a difference.
There's, you'll hear more substance in
Yeah.
it, you know what I mean? The clarity of the digital tracks are crisp as hell, you know what I mean? But why digital became so popular is because of the editing power. It really, if you didn't have that editing power, I don't think digital would ever take it off, because it never sounded as good as analog and was never as warm. People take analog plugins and plug them into the computer so it warms up the digital. You know what I mean? But you couldn't punch in the same way. You couldn't alter your, say, if you were singing, your voice, your track, push it back and forth. You can't do that with tape. You know what I mean? So, and I almost feel like, as great as the editing power is, it's part of the reason why the music business got killed. Because now I could take anybody and edit them and make them sound good. That's pretty wild. It's like you got, it's like, every paper you're gonna write, I'm gonna fix every word that you wrote that's spelled incorrectly. I'm gonna shift everything. Oh wait, that sentence isn't as good. Let me fix this for you. You know what I mean? And that's what's happening. And so it's like, what's the difference? The cool thing about playing the sax is, if you're gonna lay down saxophone on a track, and it's like you really listen to a sax, not that one that sounds digital, like what's that song? Saxo Beat. Right? That song is just that's like it moved. It sounds like almost like the digital sax.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about a song like that. I'm talking about like a song where you hear a sax solo that's being played, doesn't sound digitized, because it's hard to do that because of the fluctuations in the sound.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
And so that's the cool thing. So if you're actually listening to a real sax,
it's very different than anything digital. Yeah,
you're not going to sit there and move it, because right now technology for that still isn't there. I mean, I can take your voice, fix your voice. I can take the sax line and cut and paste and move it here, move it there. You know what I mean?
True.
But as far as tuning and stuff like that, I'm not going to sit there and shift that.
Yeah. I think that's more easy to do with like a keyboard, drums, guitar.
Oh yeah, all the stuff, anything electronic or anything like that. Yeah, drum, easy. That's why if you think about popular music, what do you hear? You hear bass, drums, keys, and guitar.
Yeah.
Because those are the easiest ones to edit. And and those are like, those are the simple, as far as chord wise, we can't play chords in the winds, and we don't have to have fluctuation in the sound. our airflow really is a little bit harder to work with in a digital environment.
That vibrato.
Yeah, or anything, like whatever I'm doing on there, it's hard because there's so many factors still. Where you play the keyboard, you hit the keys, and you're gonna get, you get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's harder to mimic a guitar solo if the guitar player's doing a lot in the solo, but if the guitar player's just hitting out chords and strumming, that's a little easier to mess with. That's why they can sample that stuff. Same thing with the bass and drums. They can sample that stuff because there's not a lot of fluctuation in the sound. It is what it is. So.
When would you say you saw the music industry starting to change? Like, was there like a defining moment?
I'm gonna say right around when DJs started to get popular, because at that time everything started to change, and that's also around the time that I really said, something. That's when I got into teaching in the schools. So it's right all around the same time. Because what happened was, playing, and I told you I would do so many gigs. And that's why you buy a house as a musician. I couldn't do that today. If I go to a bar, I'm still making, if I went to a bar and played, I'd make the same money I made 25, 30 years ago. That's pathetic. You know what I mean? Because, it's like, and even like the private party stuff, it's like, wait a second, because back, in the 90s, you played a party, you made $350 to $500. Well, if I play one now, I may get the same money. You know what I mean? That's pretty bad. You can go to a bar and make $100. Well, I made $100 on a bar 30 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, huh?
So the value's just
it's just not there. And look how much you could buy a house back then for $100 grand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
150 for 600, 700.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Yeah, so if I put $5 grand down on the house back then, I'm all right. So so the whole thing about playing and gigging has really drastically changed a lot. So I feel bad for that. It's nice to make some side money, and if you do like some cocktail hours and stuff like that, but it's also New York's industry has changed a lot, depending on where you live in. But the musicians, the problem is there's a lot of musicians that come in that are newbies or green, and they'll just undercut the people that have been playing for a long time. And a lot of times, the owners of the clubs just want to make money too. So it's like kind of like a catch-22. You can't blame the guys for making money, but there's the promotion, everything gets weird. So but I did because back in that time in the '90s, I was playing some shows where played weddings or whatever it was, anything. But there was, even for shows, you could double and play. Where as the time was progressing, they were cutting down on how many musicians they were going to use in the pit. So if you're the new guy on the block, who's the first one to go? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second, I'm learning how to double, and I can double pretty well. But it's like, well, we're cutting down. We're not going to have 4 read books. We're going to have 2 read books. Or, you know what I mean? However it was for whatever show it was. So, and then you could see the DJs coming in, and at the time there was bands all over the place. But then little by little, there's more and more DJs popping in because the DJs were undercutting. Hey, I can have a band for, like, I'm just going to throw a number out, for 2,000, but I can have this DJ for 300.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people will be like, something I want to do with the DJ. Hey, we have a band for 5,000, DJ for 500. So that was part of it. What I never understood is there, through certain things where you got all these musicians working together, but then when a DJ comes in, and this is more of a recent thing. Some of these DJs could get $50,000 for a performance today, $40,000 for a performance today. And I understand some of them are more celebrity status.
Yeah, I was gonna say it could be a branding thing where.
But it's like that's a lot of money for somebody spinning. You know what I mean?
No,
unless it's more of a celebrity appearance. So for me, that's always been very interesting because you're really just paying for somebody's face. You know what I mean? So, anyway, so.
Okay. So now you're teaching now, right?
Yeah.
You're still doing the gigging.
Yeah.
Now, when do you start to get into songwriting?
Yeah, that's a good question because I wrote when I was younger and I really enjoyed it because I did composition and arranging, but I was really trying to get into the full orchestration.
Like everything.
Yeah, like write for strings and winds and the whole 9 yards. And I was actually arranging band music, believe it or not.
So you were writing the music?
Yeah. I did a lot. Put it this way, my whole first bunch of years, probably the first 10 years, most of the arrangements I did for band were mine. I didn't use other people's arrangements. I used my own because my own worked for my instrumentation and if I had to rearrange, because I always found myself rearranging it anyway. You get a couple, like say for example, my band's got better sax players and the trumpets can't play as well. Well, I'm going to feature on this song. I'm going to feature the saxes.
Yeah.
Maybe give the trumpets more of a sax like background part or something, and work it to the groups that I had, and write to the ability. And that's kind of the way. There was a guy named Carl Stroman who's an arranger who's like, explaining to me, and that was something that I thought I was going to get into, and then I was like, I kind of ended up not doing that, and then I just got into straight songwriting little by little, and I felt like the songwriting was more therapeutic when I first did it.
So it was more of like a hobby. Like
I just enjoy. I enjoy doing it. I did a smooth jazz group along the way.
Really?
Yeah, with matter of fact, the guy Ronnie that I played sax with.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was part of the group. Frank came back into the whole mix.
Wow. The boys are back.
The boys are back. Phil Gray was a trumpet player in the group. There's a guy named Jimmy Yeager. We used this guy Brian Dunn for a lot of the tracks, and then I think his brother Kevin also played some tracks with us. Another guy named Bob Callow. So all really good players, and we did a bunch of jazz gigs, like smooth jazz. We created a CD, and everybody really liked us a lot. But there was a problem that we didn't know what was going on. All the CDs we made that we sent out to everybody were all blank. Yeah.
So let's dive into this a little bit. So how did you find that?
Because we got a call back from people.
From everybody, right?
Not everybody, but certain people were nice enough to go. CD sent us was blank, and when we, because we paid for 300 CDs to be sent out, and we weren't using them. We would just send them out trying to get a deal with for us playing. And once again, people liked us. We got offered to do different gigs and different shows, and not knowing. One of the guys, I thought he was talking out of his ass because he's telling us that the CD is blank. What I mean? That at some point, because we had CDs that worked, but then a whole pack of them, that we sent out, we were trying to get it, didn't work. And then shortly after that, as we were working, and this is when the whole scene is changing, DJ this, the station CD 101 ended. As we were doing that vibe of music, it just all of a sudden it was
just
stopped.
Flat out.
Just stopped, yeah. And it was like, nobody wanted to hire us because that whole thing was considered dead in that era. So we went, if that station would have probably stayed, and we would have, because we were in the plans of resubmitting out CDs, but it was like, all right, now it's like nobody wants to listen to that. It was like, it was like CD 101.9, CD 101.9, you know what I mean? So we caught the end of it, and like I said, really good musicians, a lot of fun, a lot of laughing. Anybody in the group could play a great solo. We had music with vocals and without vocals.
Okay.
had a little horn section, and it was so that was fun. We recorded it in my house in Deer Park, most of the tracks. I didn't mix it, but we tracked it there, because when I bought my house in Deer Park, I built a studio in it.
Did you really?
Yeah. I had a 24 track studio in the house.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I put at that time, probably about $100 grand into it.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the house, and like I said, I was student teaching and doing this. So this was going on. I bought the house before I student taught, started student teaching. The studio was getting built. All I saw was money coming out of my pocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and then again got my teaching degree and made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So, but my first, and I forgot about this. My first sub job that I got was before I got the job with the guy from the big band. Remember I told Frank Sagarese?
Yeah.
So what happened was I sat in and played with the Nassau Pops and with Phil Gray, and Phil was like, "Oh, come down and play." The trombone guy, I can't remember his name, who ran the band. He was a trombone player. The school, Lawrence, at the time needed somebody.
Okay.
And so I got recommended for the job. I didn't finish my teaching degree though.
Oof.
Yeah. I had my.
So since the time you just went there, huh?
Well, I had the degree, but I didn't finish the NTE or NTE test. I think it was called National.
Was it like a
NTE.
certification?
Yeah, National Teachers Exam. I didn't take that, so I had to take it. So they let me. Dean Carahalis, that was the guy's name. They let me get the job, and I said, "Well, I'm taking the National Teachers Exam." Actually, I took the teacher's exam, but there was one spot I had to retake because of course I got I think it was like a score of 649, and I needed a 650.
Oh,
right? So
man.
So I take the job I'm working, and I'm like, all right, I got to study for this. But it's like one of these tests you don't even know how to study for. But I was trying a little bit, so then they're asking me, because I'm teaching, and they actually paid me as a full-time, like as not as a permanent sub, but as a real sub teacher. You know what I mean? So I was taking home almost a regular salary.
Wow.
3 months in, waiting for my exam to come in, the superintendent calls me into the office. He's like, "Well, what's going on?" I was like, "Oh, I passed that thing, no problem." He's like, "Oh, yeah." I go, "Yeah, I'll be fine for." He goes, "Well, because your subbing status ends if you don't have your certification." He goes, "Yeah." So I was like, "Oh, it should be in a day." He's like, "Okay, I can extend it for another week only." So I get the paper in that says I took the NTE exam, and I never forget. I'm like all nervous, open it up, and I look at the score, and it says 650. I'm like, 650? Because I was like, do I need a 650 or do I need a 651?
Yeah.
So it ended up I needed a 650 to pass, and I got a 650 on that part of the exam. So I only went up 1 point.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you just passed.
I just passed it, and I studied for it the second time. I never studied for it the first time.
Yeah.
So I didn't study for the other parts. I just took it, and those parts I passed. But the one part, I got, and they were like, "Yeah, it's one of these weird ones. A lot of people get like a 651, 652," and I'm like, I don't care what I gotta get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was one of these. It was a very weird test, which they got rid of. And then I finished subbing there. They actually offered me step 2 to stay.
What do you mean step 2?
Step 2 as a teacher. To stay. But that's when I ended up going to Berkley instead. So that's all because I was doing the big band. There's a couple of districts I was checking out, but I really liked Massapequa. I liked a lot of the people that were there. I really liked the students. I had a really big program in the beginning when I worked there.
How many kids?
We were anywhere always from 190 to 26 in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade.
Wow.
There's a lot of kids. We had times we had 90 kids in 4th grade. And I had Mr. Locke helping me.
Yeah.
It was huge. So, you know, it was definitely very, very cool. And the guys I worked with, Tom Tucker, Mike Malloy, and Gary Locke, were always great.
Yeah.
You know, it was
I remember you guys were like the group.
Yeah, we always had fun. We played music together, and we kidded around with each other. The two gym teachers were Tony Steigold and Mike Dempsey at the time, and we had a blast. You know, we laughed and had a good time. And today everybody's so uptight, and everybody's trying to be so politically correct that nobody's smiling, nobody's laughing, nobody's having, and it's like it's affected. You know, you like the students see everybody so regimented and everybody so tight. Where they saw us back then, and they were like, they wanted to be part of the program because, like, yeah, we're always having a good time.
Yeah. And
we're playing music, you know, and that's the way it always was. That's the way it was for me growing up. So why shouldn't it be for them? You know, why do we need everything so regimented? We're playing music. If you sound good, you're coming in, you do what you gotta do.
It's a great time, right?
Yeah. So the great thing about playing the classical music is looking at music in great detail. The great thing about improvising is being creative. So I feel like anybody that's learning how to play, or any student that's going through, it's great for the head, because you're learning to play music in great detail, looking from the classical point up. I'm going to look at this song, I'm going to follow every articulation, every dynamic, every rhythm, and we're going to really enhance it, and I'm going to play that music perfectly. That alone is hard. When I learned that was really hard was when I was first starting to teach, and I started to record all the Nisma solos. And I was like, holy crap, I made a mistake. I forgot to hold this note out or whatever.
Yeah.
I missed this rest. I was like, man, dude, it's a lot harder. That's only a level 2, and this was a level 3. And I made a mistake. You make one mistake and you're
it
like
throws everything off.
Well,
yeah.
You think of it this way. You're playing, like, I recorded from beginning to end. I was not cutting and pasting. So I recorded from beginning to end, and you make one mistake and you're like, 4 minutes in, you're going back and doing the whole thing again. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It was like, and then what happened was that was one of the reasons why it also got me into the whole thing with the classical and doing the, because it was like my first year when I was at Lawrence. And I did that subbing thing. I was like, these kids never even did this, but they don't even know what it is. And I was like, well, let me get some of these solos. And I took them like over the weekend, and I was going to record. It was like level 1 to level 4. It was like I think I did 16 solos, but on all different instruments, you know what I mean?
Wow.
So I played trumpet, saxophone, flute, oboe, French horn, trombone, you know what I mean? So, but they weren't really hard songs.
Yeah.
I think the trumpet song was a song called Honor and Arms. It was like a level 4. Sonata for the alto, and then I played like Minuet in G, on the trombone.
It's a classic, right?
Yeah. So it's nothing major to play, but the point is to play it perfectly is another whole album. You know what I mean? So,
I know what you're like. There's a difference between doing a good job versus
really, because you're trying to play it perfectly, because here you are, you're recording yourself, and you're giving recording to a student, and you want it to sound perfect. So, and the good thing, I think every teacher should have to do that, because it makes you look at yourself and go, that sounds pretty good. Listen to yourself play. How does that sound? Here you play. Listen to yourself on your doubles. Because you're really modeling an instrument for a kid to play. So if I sound like crap playing the trumpet, well, I'm not going to expect that kid to play well, because he's listening to me sound like crap. So I want to give a nice sound and play the music where it sounds, where they go, hey, that sounded really good. That's really the goal when you're playing. It's not how much you play, it's how you play. That's so even if I'm playing a 2 or 3 or 4, because in the elementary school, the highest I ever went up to was a level 4.
Yeah.
But to be able to play those 4s really well, and sound musical. some of them get long. So yeah.
Anything you wanna talk about?
Oh my God, I talk so much.
I know you.
I didn't realize it was after. It's after
Yeah.
5. Oh my God.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how long have what did I say to come over at?
4 o'clock.
4. Okay, that's not bad. That's actually not that bad.
So.
I've had a
The only thing I can add in is if you're gonna play, you know, it's a commitment.
yeah.
You know, it's a commitment, and you know, it's something that you want to do for your life. So
Yeah.
you know, it becomes a life commitment, and it's enjoyable. So
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
anyway,
Well,
all right, well,
thank you.
all right, you're welcome.